After my publications exposing the machinations of a group of individuals with gaming resources, these individuals began a real hunt for me. In the video, I demonstrated irrefutable evidence of fraudulent activity. They had no counterarguments, and the only thing they could do was file a complaint about the video expose, where I showed that the administrator of these communities, which sold moderator positions and modifications to Dungeon Siege gaming resources, was indeed Killa and no one else. I showed Killa's profile, where he uploaded his own photo. They decided to take advantage of this and filed a complaint as if I were showing personal information in the video. But this is not the case, because I showed a profile with a photo of Killa that he himself uploaded for public access, so it does not fall under the definition of personal information. But for some reason, YouTube acted very strangely and accepted their complaint, after which my videos became unavailable. In other words, these people are abusing YouTube's rules to hide evidence of their fraudulent schemes from everyone. Filing complaints about video investigations and subsequently removing these videos through such complaints is actually part of a plan to later claim that the videos had no evidence, which is why YouTube removed them. I have received information that these people are publicly expressing this position, which is, in fact, a blatant lie. Okay, I have taken into account the possible manipulation of YouTube rules by these individuals and will not show the face of the character Killa, so that they have no obvious reason to complain about the video. In the future, I will consider bringing these individuals to justice for persecuting me and slandering me. Everything will depend on the jurisdiction of the countries where these individuals are located. Therefore, if these people continue to pressure and persecute me, I can recommend that they do not file complaints about the video about their manipulation of game resources, but rather look for lawyers. In the meantime, I will once again present evidence of the sale of gaming resources, manipulation of the authorship of other people's resources, distribution of closed corporate gaming resources, which is a gross violation of the law and requires a thorough legal investigation. Distribution of cracks with game keys under the guise of patches, fixes, corrections, and many other manipulations and machinations with game resources. This was supposed to be a completely different video, but when I delved deeper into the issue, I was horrified by the evidence I found. These people are playing a very dirty and shameful game, and I consider it my duty to protect others from these fraudulent schemes. They have created a well-organized scam network within the gaming community. This system involves well-known figures, including the moderator of the Dungeon Siege game on Reddit, and other so-called respectable individuals, programmers, streamers, and others. In this video, I will present evidence and arguments that expose the group's manipulative and dishonest actions towards certain gaming communities. So, I recommend grabbing some popcorn, getting comfortable, and watching the video to the end. There's going to be a lot of interesting content. He wanted to test this scheme on me, but this time things didn't go as planned for him.
Hello, Mr. Evil Tyrael. How are you doing? I'm Killa. Nice to meet you.
Hello!
Know who I am?
A human?
No, bro. I'm Killa, creator of the Killa fix for Dungeon Siege 1 and 2 and owner of the Kingdom of App. I've also leaked the source code for Dungeon Siege. I've also worked on Dungeon Siege 2 Legendary Mod, Dungeon Siege 1 SD, Dungeon Siege Nightly.
Next, he acted logically and stayed focused on his goal. He invited me to his community, but in a very strange way, while disrespecting his own group. Most likely, he says the same thing to everyone when his goal is to lure someone specific into his community. It's a psychological trick to gain trust more easily.
My friend, I'd like to tell you something. I like your personality and I deeply respect your efforts. I also like the fact you're modding my favorite dungeon siege game, which is 2. As the creator of the Kingdom of Ep, most modders only pay attention to DS1, and my server is full of these said modders, which I do not really respect. You are a person who gets shit done, just like me. I highly value this. I like being around people who I think are like-minded individuals such as you. For this reason, I'd like to invite you to my server. As a friend, I'd value your presence there a lot. I've been modding both games for years, yet it is very rare to see DS2 modders.
But the people there were far too full of themselves, so I left. Over time, however, I realized that this person, who calls himself Killa, wanted to use me and others who would be working on the remaster. And when he wrote to me, insisting that I list him as a co-author of the remaster, that's when I once again became convinced that he was playing a dirty game, and removing him from our community was only a matter of time. And later, I did remove him, which made him furious.
Set me up as DS2R development team as well.
Yes, then we will distribute roles in the team. Everyone will do their own thing.
Okay.
Of course, they couldn't ignore such resources, and at the beginning of 2024, they tested and published the results of those tests, but with one major detail: a mandatory mention of Killa and other important people in the process. You might think that's a minor thing? No. Later I'll show how they used the same tactic on other platforms, but this time without referencing the original source or the real authors of those publications. Instead, they generalized the source without providing any specifics. After these tests, they discovered that those files didn't work properly with Dungeon Siege 2 and abandoned the multiplayer resources, never returning to them. In other words, they themselves confirmed that these files don't function correctly with Dungeon Siege 2, and that's an important detail. Watch the video to the end, and you'll understand why this detail matters. But not everyone was happy about the restoration of the multiplayer. I couldn't have imagined how much my success in bringing the multiplayer back would enrage those deceitful hyenas. They were furious about it.
Quick! Grab that DLL file that Ansuan and Liguska published. Post it on every site and be sure to say that I did it. Killa! Shout loudly that the multiplayer has been restored. Killa! Sargot! And add a link to Nexus mods because nobody will pay us for this commotion.
We tested that DLL file here. The game freezes. It doesn't work properly. No one will play it.
Shut up! Shout loudly on the sites that everything works and close the comments on Nexus mods.
I couldn't believe my eyes. A huge crowd was scrambling all at once against a single person, telling everyone that their one DLL file was the same as the game server I had configured and launched. I have no idea who that blatant lie is meant to fool, but it's absolute cringe. But look at what they've done. They acted like little children. Out of anger and haste, they dug up that long-forgotten DLL file and, like maniacs, started spreading it across different websites without even referencing the original source or its authors, Ansuan and Liguska. It's the exact same file because the hash value matches perfectly. Yet they didn't forget to mention other people, and of course Killa. Naturally, those people have absolutely nothing to do with that DLL file, but they actively leech off similar resources. It's a fraudulent scheme that allows them to redistribute other people's work however they please. But what surprised me most was the Dungeon Siege moderator on Reddit. He's basically an accomplice in the fraudulent schemes of a person who calls himself Killa. Even judging by this last post, he didn't provide the original source link, didn't credit the real authors of the files, and instead attributed authorship of the DLL file to people who have nothing to do with it. The description is also completely inaccurate. He wrote pure technical nonsense. Once this video is published, a report will be filed on Reddit against this moderator for fraudulent behavior. This scammer knew very well that he had instructed his people to publish a non-working version of the multiplayer. After that, he rushed to the OpenSpy community to find and ask for help fixing this problem. In other words, by publishing a supposedly working multiplayer, he cynically and brazenly lied to everyone. And he was also very frightened by my publication of a successful server connection with the game Dungeon Siege 2. I think now you understand how dangerous this person is. For the sake of his ambitions, he is capable of very dirty tricks. In the first part of the video, I provided countless pieces of evidence showing how a group of people, led by their curator who calls himself Killa, launched an information attack on our remaster. This happened after I suspected Killa of using our project for his own purposes, and after another successful publication of multiplayer testing, we saw unmotivated aggression and outright lies from Killa. I refuted these lies with numerous pieces of evidence, and as a result, this group of people who attacked our remaster suffered a well-deserved fiasco. I want to emphasize that after I expelled the character who calls himself Killa from our community, we did not touch anyone, and continued to work on our fan remaster. Over time, I forgot about this character and continued to work for the benefit of our community. After successful multiplayer testing, I published the results, encouraging Dungeon Siege 2 fans that development was progressing well, and that we might soon be able to play the game's multiplayer mode again. But Killa attacked these results with absurd accusations, and almost immediately began coordinating an information attack. In other words, we didn't touch these people, and they started persecuting us. I had to respond to these attacks by refuting their lies with numerous pieces of evidence, which you can review again in the first part of this video if you wish. Let's summarize what I just said. I expelled the character Killa from our community on suspicion of foul play. We had long forgotten about him, but when we demonstrated our success in developing the remaster, this character began to harass us by coordinating an information attack. I had to respond to these attacks by refuting them with ample evidence of the absurdity and untruthfulness of these accusations. Now, it is important to understand and recall the sequence of events that actually took place, because later they realized that their attack had failed and I had successfully repelled it. They will begin to fabricate the circumstances of the sequence by spreading false information. Therefore, unfortunately, I must respond to this. Looking ahead, I will say that they will distort the true sequence of events in every way possible to portray themselves as victims in this situation. But I want to say that the more they lie and distort the facts, the more I demonstrate and show numerous proofs of their lies. But this time, my patience has run out, and I will no longer be as punctual as possible in this situation. So, grab some popcorn, sit back and relax. This time, I will again demonstrate a lot of evidence refuting these people's latest lies. And I will also show additional evidence of how the character Killa parasitizes on other people's work and appropriates it for himself in a very cunning way. I will also provide exclusive information about who actually owns the rights to Dungeon Siege 2. After the video was published, and evidence of parasitism on other people's work and fraudulent schemes involving gaming resources was presented, they were very angry. They couldn't do anything to me because I had presented evidence, not just words. But they didn't give up on the idea of continuing to persecute me, planning how they could get revenge, and they found a way to do it. I had already started to forget about these people, but they did something very mean and insidious. I have the impression that I am being pursued by young children who have nothing better to do than think about how to harm me. Only one person could have initiated my ban on Reddit, Sadao-san. For those who haven't seen the first video, let me remind you that Sadao-san is a close friend of Killa. Sadao-san is a moderator of the Dungeon Siege subreddit on Reddit. Without any substantial evidence against me, they decided to use their hand-picked moderator on Reddit to initiate my ban there. This is a very dirty move. This is done so that later, referring to my ban on Reddit, they can say that I am banned on various sites. In this way, they want to discredit me by initiating my ban through their hand-picked moderator. Frankly speaking, Sadao-san is a very strange person. Today he wants to join the Remaster development team, and tomorrow he will be among the conspirators behind your ban on Reddit. In order not to drag out the video, I will not dwell on the reasons for my blocking that were given to me. You will see for yourselves how absurd and ridiculous these accusations are. I will not quote all the nonsense written by this crazy moderator. I will only quote what I consider to be his most serious accusations.
Soliciting payment for modifications to the game client is against the terms of service as set out by Square Enix. You cannot ask people to pay you for your server access for Dungeon Siege 2.
I don't know what this moderator is smoking, but he wrote utter nonsense. Since when did the physical PC we are collecting donations for become the property of Square Enix? All donations for the physical PC are voluntary, and no one has ever demanded money from anyone. I have never written anywhere that if someone wants to play multiplayer, they have to pay money. I have written and emphasized many times that the remaster is a free project. In other words, this moderator has slandered me or is simply out of his mind. And also, look, he mentioned Square Enix here, but I'll show you a very interesting difference on this subject. In 2016, I contacted Square Enix for some game resources, and this is what they replied.
Thank you for contacting Square Enix support. Unfortunately, the title you have contacted us about is published by Microsoft Studios, with development by Gas-Powered Games. now part of wargaming.net. Though we had published a few of their games, including Dungeon Siege 3, we currently do not have the rights to any of the previous properties. You will need to contact one of the above companies if you wish to make the request. We apologize, we cannot assist further with this title. Thank you for contacting the Square Enix Support Center.
From this response, we can clearly see that Square Enix clearly responds to me that they do not own the rights to Dungeon Siege and Dungeon Siege 2. This is a very interesting response. But in the context of this video, we can confidently say that the moderator who mentioned Square Enix as part of the accusations against me is talking utter nonsense. This moderator can't even come up with a convincing false accusation. He doesn't even know what he's writing about. Okay, I think we figured that out. Let's see what other lies he attributed to me.
In other social circles, you also accused modders of being mentally unhealthy people with problems with their intelligence level. Discord. On your YouTube videos, you have actively cyberbullied other modders and actively shamed the original developers of the games. YouTube.
Let's start with the fact that this is already an abuse of the moderator's authority. His jurisdiction does not extend beyond Reddit. If I had a falling out with my neighbor, that doesn't mean that a Reddit moderator should stick his nose into my personal affairs outside of Reddit. But if we respond to the substance of these three accusations, almost all of them are outright lies. One accusation is distorted. Everyone who follows the progress of the Remaster's development knows how hard I worked on the technical analysis of this game. As a result, I made a comprehensive report to the community. I showed what I had managed to do, and also what technical errors I had found in the game. In other words, in this video, I did not resort to personal attacks, but only occasionally made fair, critical comments about technical errors made by the game developers. In other words, this moderator is either lying again or simply slandering me. Regarding the Discord server of their community, which includes this same moderator, there is evidence from people who also confirm that they really like to humiliate people in their community. Here is a screenshot of evidence from one such person. The same thing happened to me when I joined this community at Killa's invitation. I saw that they were working on DS1 and told them, the group's administration, that they were working on a dead-end project. You're just wasting your time. You'd be better off working on Dungeon Siege 2. It really bothered them that I was telling such cool guys what to do. And the person with the nickname Kryden started to get personal, insulting me for giving such advice, and then even threatened me with physical violence. To say that I was surprised would be an understatement. I replied that he needed to learn how to communicate with people because he was behaving inappropriately. After that, I left that madness. In other words, my response to Kryden from that community was fair and logical. In other words, this moderator is lying again by distorting the facts. All subsequent accusations by this moderator are the same: similar, false, and distorted. I can easily refute his other accusations, but let's not waste our precious time on this fantasist. However, I would like to show you how he summarized his accusations against me. In fact, he confirms here that the accusations against me are not based on anything specific, but simply that someone is very offended by me, and if I apologize, they will unblock me. I think he conveyed this not only on his own behalf, but also on behalf of the entire administration of that community. But you know, I just remembered a picture. I wonder why I remembered it right now. Let's move on to our favorite character, Killa. You know, this person has become so arrogant that even today he manages to sell Dungeon Siege game resources. Don't believe it? Here, take a look. Frankly speaking, there is no place to put a label on this character. He even managed to create a group on Steam called Dungeon Siege and add official group to it. In other words, this person is passing off his own Dungeon Siege group as the official Dungeon Siege group. The prefix TKOE is a very primitive manipulation, and here is a topic in this group: Dungeon Siege Nidal. Scrolling down to the bottom of this topic, we see a direct link to his Patreon page, where he brazenly sells resources for this mod. I have never seen such unpunished arrogance. It is very strange that Steam has not yet deleted this group. At the very beginning of the description of this mod, he uses his favorite trick. He always mentions himself and mentions some other mods he has worked on, but emphasizes it as if he were the owner of these mods. I think a little more and he will write in every mod that he created the Earth and then the people on it. But look further. If we look at the resources of this mod, the author clearly states that he does not allow it to be distributed without his consent. In other words, the author claims that he is the author of this mod. But if we look at the resources of this mod, we can find resources from other mods. For example, some resources from 2011 with a partial Russian translation. Let me remind you that the date of publication and development of this mod is 2021, but we can see that there are some parts of older mods here. However, the author claims that it is all his. In other words, we can also see manipulation of resources and appropriation of them, as well as a ban on distributing this whole hodgepodge without the permission of a certain person. It's just some kind of cringe. We only looked at one mod that Killa had a hand in, and we didn't even delve deeper into its technical analysis.
And then there is a character named Genesis. His favorite pastime is distributing the same license key to different copies of the game and calling this crack a patch or fix. He also took part in the attack on our remaster, so we will gladly remember him as he deserves. By the way, Killa distributes this crack via Steam, calling it all a fix. As you can see, these are not just words, but real evidence that can be demonstrated for hours on end. But Killa feels most arrogant on Nexus mods. He can even create posts without referencing or mentioning the original source and its authors, as seen here. This is very bold and arrogant behavior. The final destinations of all these links from Killa, the chief curator of all these scam schemes, are Nexus mods and his personal community on Discord. He actively spams his Discord with links from Nexus mods. Obviously, this is not done for no reason, but I have no direct evidence that Killa is collaborating with Nexus mods or anything like that, so I won't make any claims here. But you might say that there's nothing wrong with that, if a person has found a way to make money. Yes, you would be right, but there is one thing. All this is done in a very dirty way, claiming authorship of other people's works, trading game resources without the legal permission of their owners, distributing pirated content on gaming platforms such as Steam, organizing coordinated information attacks by a group of people against one person just because they are better at content modding, distributing corporate game resources without the permission of their owners. These are not just empty and unsubstantiated accusations. I have provided ample evidence of all these dirty schemes in these two videos. By the way, regarding the corporate resources they distribute without the proper legal permission of their owners, frankly speaking, this is a very serious violation that requires further investigation. Probably few people noticed, but Killa personally wrote to me in private messages that he was the one who distributed the source code for the game Dungeon Siege. I don't think he's bluffing. Killa wrote to me that it was he and the character Mike Biddlecombe who provided me with some corporate files for Dungeon Siege 2. And that's really true. You won't find such files anywhere in the public domain. These are indeed corporate resources. The only question is, where did they get them? Is it right to share such information? I think that's up to each individual, but these people, like a pack of hyenas, have launched a persecution and hunt against one person. They thought they were very important guys, and that I was just another nobody they could easily crush and destroy just because I refused to cooperate with them and get rid of the parasite who wanted to use our remaster for his own purposes. You see, it's not even about the game resources. It's about the methods they use. They act like racketeers. If you refuse to cooperate with them, they'll come after you. But this time, they didn't take one thing into account. They wanted to crush a person that the Russians, with weapons in their hands, couldn't destroy.